At this point in our deep time timeline, multicellular organisms now exist on the planet. Let's look at how they've diversified after that. Here are your learning objectives. They're mostly just a continuation of the learning objectives from the previous mini lecture. When we left our timeline, we were at about 1 billion years ago when we see the earliest multicellular organisms in the fossil record. It takes about 500 million years to get to the point where we have recognizable animals. There's a massive diversification in animal fossils around 500 million years ago. This extreme speciation event is called the Cambrian explosion. It's not an explosion like boom, just a big increase in animal species during the Cambrian era. At this point, all animals live in the ocean, but all animal phyla we have today can be traced back to this era. There were early mollusks and early arthropods, even early vertebrates, as well as many ancestors to phyla of worms and other phyla we find today. But these do not look like organisms we have today. They're clearly different, but they are our ancestors. Around the time that our animal ancestors were diversifying in the oceans, the first plants moved up onto land. These were mosses. Arthropods followed a mere 50 million years after. The earliest land animals were ancestral relatives of the millipedes. What would be the benefit for these animals of moving up onto land? If there's a lot of speciation in the seas, the niches get filled up and competition increases for available resources. On land, there's no competition, so herbivorous animals can munch on delicious mosses, and as an added bonus, they avoid any predators in the water. Plants on land are successful. There's a ton of light and CO2 for them. They diversify. Some develop the ability to grow tall. These are the ferns. Now there are plenty of plants on land and some shade and tons of insects. The first vertebrates now move up into terrestrial habitats. There are resources available for these amphibious fish called tetrapods. Tetrapod just means four-footed. The earliest fossil we have from these four-legged fish is Tiktaalik. It has the traits of a fish and some traits of a land animal. All tetrapods today, like humans and birds and kangaroos and lizards, all have bones that indicate we are the direct descendants of animals like Tiktaalik. We'll address that more in the fossils and comparative anatomy lectures. It's thought that these fish moved up onto land for a couple of reasons. One reason was that there was massive speciation in the ocean of fish, including many species of sharks. So being able to survive on land meant less competition and less predation. There's also food and shade available on land. They can eat meat, insects, or plants, and the shade would reduce their chances of drying out. Diversification of plants and land animals continues. Diversification also continues in the ocean, but we're going to focus on land now. We see fossils of the first seed-bearing plants, the conifers. And land animals develop adaptations that allow them to move further from the water. These are early reptiles. There have been many major extinction events, but we usually focus on those that impact animals because we're animals. One extinction event occurred just as fish were moving up onto land. It's one reason why Tiktaalik was successful on land. Other species were dying out in the water. The mother of all extinction events was the Permian extinction. This occurred about 250 million years ago and caused the extinction of about 90% of land animals and many, many species in the sea. It's nicknamed the Great Dying. Its cause? High atmospheric carbon dioxide from massive volcanic activity. One group of animals that went extinct was Dimetrodon, these sail-backed reptiles, which are the ancestors of mammals. Some descendants of theirs survived the Permian extinction. Dimetrodon is not a dinosaur. It's a mammal-like reptile. This extinction event led to the rise of dinosaurs. Why? Why do we tend to see a lot of new species after an extinction event? Extinctions create open what? Extinctions create open niches, which allows for new speciation to occur. It reduces competition and allows more diversification to succeed. One of the groups that diversified after the Permian extinction were the dinosaurs. These early dinosaurs do not look like the dinosaurs you're probably familiar with, these late dinosaurs. Early dinosaurs are all very similar to each other and don't have the distinctive, unique traits that later dinosaurs developed. Dinosaurs evolved from reptiles. So did mammals. They evolved from a different population, a different group. Mammals diversified from descendants of those sailback reptiles before the Permian extinction. The earliest mammal is this therapsid from about 200 million years ago. The birds evolved from one group of dinosaurs about 150 million years ago. And these animals are all hanging around with the dinosaurs until a massive meteor strikes the Earth about 65 million years ago. This is the Cretaceous extinction event. Many species and groups go extinct. The bird-like dinosaurs survive. Birds today are the last surviving dinosaurs, and some very small mammals survive. With the open niches from other dinosaurs, the birds and mammals are able to expand into those open niches. An interesting thing happens during these massive extinction events. We see the shrinking of organisms. If we look at the average size of, say, mammals before an extinction event and compare that to mammals after the extinction event, they shrink. This is called the Lilliput effect. Pause this video and think for a moment what it would be like in the days, months, or years following a massive asteroid strike. Why would smaller animals be more successful than larger animals? The asteroid strike caused many other massive natural disasters. Increased volcanic activity, a wall of superheated air, massive tidal waves, but it also sent up a lot of particles into the air, reducing the amount of light that reached the surface of the Earth. The disasters and reduced sun energy lowered the survival of plants, which reduced resources available to animals. Less energy means that being small would be more successful. We're currently seeing a similar Lilliput effect now with the Holocene extinction. While this is natural selection, how would you describe the shift in these traits? This would be a directional shift. The traits for being smaller are more successful. the genetic variation shifts towards smaller sizes. For the last 50 million years, mammals and birds have been pretty successful in their niches. Of course, we're now in the Holocene extinction event, and we're seeing a loss of megafauna, the large mammals and birds. Many of these animals were alive around 10,000 years ago, so ancient stories that have been passed down from generation to generations sometimes tell true tales of the animals that are no longer with us today. One last note and a reminder: evolution does not refer to the Big Bang or the formation of the Earth. Evolution is a change in life forms over time. Life on Earth began 4 billion years ago. That's when evolution began. The Earth began cooling and solidifying a little more than 4.5 billion years ago. The Big Bang, or the beginning of the universe, happened about 14 billion years ago. These are separate events, different from evolution. If you're interested in those, you might like a class in astrophysics.